Good day to you all, and thanks for joining us for our informative and hopefully valuable webinar on Windows Server 2012. I am Gary Byrne and I'm part of the solutions team here at Environ, so if and when you have a requirement for a new or upgraded system or one of our technology services, we may well meet to discuss your solution. Environ have planned that you have the ability to watch this webinar in real time or as a recording, so to ask questions, please email me at Environ at the address info@environ.co.uk, and myself or one of my colleagues will do our best to respond as soon as possible. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Sean Taylor, your key speaker for this event. Sean is a highly experienced Microsoft Solutions architect and well placed to describe the features on which this webinar is focused and answer your technical queries. Thank you, Sean, and over to you.
Thank you, Gary. So welcome to the webinar on the feature overview of Server 2012. I'm going to start with the new management interface. Microsoft have got some fantastic marketing collateral out there that goes on about the power of many and the simplicity of one. And that whole gambit is centered around this new Server Manager Administration Console. So we have the ability in here to have more than one server plugged into a dashboard updating in real time, and you don't need to be running Server 2012 in order to be a member of this dashboard. We can go all the way back to Server 2003. And as we add more servers into the console, the list of features is populated down the left-hand side, and the live tiles look at the installed features for those particular servers and populate and then go green, yellow or red depending on what those servers are actually reporting. So this gives us a true sense of centralized administration. So you could have 2 servers, you could have 20 servers, you could have 200 servers, but you only need one server management dashboard with all of those servers reporting into. Or if you saw fit, what you could do is you could actually divide that up across multiple administration or management teams. Some of the features within the product allow me to do centralized administration, so I can add and remove roles to servers either locally or remotely. Once those installations and addition or removal of roles actually takes place, it steps us through in a wizard-driven format, and at the end of the process it will provide me with notification messages to say that there are any additional tasks post-installation. And as you can see from that particular dump, the left-hand side has been populated as the services have been added. This is also, for those of you who are going to miss your start button, this is also where you get your administrative tools. And again, this list self-populates, so as I add more servers, and those servers have got more installed features, the actual tools menu grows dynamically in order to reflect the installed products. So this really does give me a true sense of centralized administration within the inbuilt product, as opposed to going out and buying a specific management tool, either Microsoft or third party, in order to try and get this type of functionality. Obviously, the headline act with regards to Server 2012 is Hyper-V and the version 3 release, which makes significant inroads into competitors' market space. So there is a bit of a competitive comparison. Some of the new features are to do with the new disk format, the increased hardware support, as well as the ability for the guests to actually connect directly into fiber channel for Windows clustering, as opposed to on Server 2008 where it was iSCSI only. I'm not going to dwell too much on the vSphere comparisons, but what I would like to point out is obviously the differences between Server 2012 and Server 2008. So any of you out there that are using Hyper-V with that particular product, you'll see that there is a marked difference, particularly around hardware support and the number of machines in a cluster, and that's a very important point to make. I talk to VMware professionals quite frequently, and they'll concede that Hyper-V is a decent product. However, it doesn't scale. Well, you can see from that it absolutely does scale. Microsoft are a big fan of their eating their own dog food, so therefore all of their services that they run are actually provisioned on Server 2012 and Hyper-V 3. So the likes of Bing, Outlook.com, the Office 365, Windows Azure, the Windows Intune platforms are all hosted on Hyper-V 3 and Server 2012. So for those of you who are interested, please take time having a look at the comparison. The decks will be made available after the webinars for those who want it. So anyone that's seen Hyper-V version 2, the new management interface will not look vastly different. In fact, it's pretty much identical. Some of the differences are in the virtual switch management, but unfortunately they cannot be done by the inbuilt management interface. They need to be done via PowerShell. But if you do need to use a graphical interface in order to do the management, we've got a webinar coming up around System Center, and Virtual Machine Manager does actually allow you to do all of the virtual switch management via a GUI, as opposed to this particular interface that allows us to do it purely via PowerShell. So some of the things that we've got in there, we've got the ability to change memory on the fly, so I don't need to close a machine down in order to change its memory, provided it's dynamic. We've got the ability to support lots of processors. You're still limited with IDE drives, so if you need to add a new drive on the go, then it would need to be a SCSI drive. However, we've got a new disk format that's coming up shortly that I'm going to talk about that may mean that you don't need to necessarily have quite so many disks. We've got second level paging in there, so it works significantly more efficiently than Server 2012 with the memory ballooning. We've also got NUMA, so the non-uniform memory architecture, in order to keep the actual space that we're using in RAM as efficient and as close to the processor as possible. So this is the ability to move the memory whilst the virtual machine is actually running. This is a new feature on Server 2008. You would have actually had to turn the machine off in order to change the upper and lower values of the dynamic memory, but that's now possible. We've also got the new hard drive format, so as opposed to using VHD, which is Microsoft's traditional format, which is limited at 2 terabytes, you've got VHDX. VHDX can go to 64 terabytes. That's theoretical at the moment. The recommended is 16 terabytes. So the requirement to add more disks into a virtual machine is now significantly less than what it used to be. And that's me actually thinly provisioning a 10 terabyte drive on my laptop. So obviously, if I did have 10 terabytes, that would be significantly impressive on a laptop. We've also got the virtual switch manager, so the traditional stuff is still there. I've still got the ability to take a network card and virtualize that and stipulate the fact that it's external, internal, or private. Slice it up across VLANs if I want to do so. One of the big things that you can now do is you can actually embed bandwidth management. So Server 2008, you virtualize the switch, you present that virtual switch to X number of virtual machines. Effectively, it's nothing more than a bun fight for the actual bandwidth. Within Server 2012 Hyper-V, we've actually got the ability to enable bandwidth management on an individual virtual machine by virtual machine basis, and we can stipulate minimum and maximum bandwidth that virtual machine is allowed to use. Because my maths is rubbish, I've got a bit of a graphic showing the fact that we've taken a 1 gig NIC, we've virtualized it, and then we've sliced the bandwidth across the appropriate number of virtual machines on a need basis. We've also got much more and much better support for non-Microsoft operating systems. So for those of you out there that are not virtualizing a Microsoft workload, there are much more flavors of the open source operating system support in here, and one of the major improvements is the fact that the actual integration services works from the get-go as opposed to after you've actually installed your operating system. There's also been some changes with regards to clustering. So particularly from a virtual machine point of view, Microsoft have now got the ability to do live migrations, which they could do before, but Previously it was serial, so if I had to evacuate a host, for example, I would live migrate virtual machine 1, when that finishes do number 2, when that finishes do number 3, so on and so forth. We've now got the ability to do multiple concurrent live migrations. There is theoretically no limit to that, but you've still got physics to deal with because you can only get so much traffic down a particular pipe. You've also got the ability to do storage live migration. This is something that previously on Server 2008 you had to actually stop the virtual machine while this was actually completing. The virtual machine might only be off for a minute or two, but you still need to turn it off. Now we've got the ability to do migration of the storage with, in the same way that we would migrate a virtual machine. We've also got support for Hyper-V replication with no clustering. So shared nothing live migration, it goes over the Ethernet connection. The caveat is the fact that the card and cable have to be rated at a minimum of a gigabit, but we've got the ability to move from a standalone Hyper-V to another standalone Hyper-V with no downtime, using nothing other than the network cable. There's also a new feature which is Hyper-V Replica. So I've actually got the ability to have a live copy of a running virtual machine stored somewhere else for disaster recovery. That replica is near real time. It snaps on average once every 15 minutes. You can then stipulate what hierarchy of snaps you actually want to keep, up to a maximum of 16. So we've got the ability to restore more or less immediately, or we can actually fall back to a previous point in time. You've also got clustering now recognises SMB3 shares as shared storage. So for those of you who, a nice beefy Dell Equalogic is an aspiration rather than the actual reality, you can do this on commodity hardware. So this is actually the ability to move the storage of the virtual machine. So when you actually go and move a virtual machine, you can stipulate what you want to do. So you can move it on shared storage, or you can, as you can see from there, you can actually just move the virtual machine or move the virtual machine's storage. All of that is done real time. Okay. So that's enough of Hyper-V. There are obviously some other fairly good features within Server 2012, so I'm going to run through some of the highlights for me. This might not necessarily be an exhaustive list, and if it's not on here, please contact the guys at Environ in order to get some more details. So the first one is storage pools. So again, for those of you where shared storage and a SAN is again an aspiration rather than a reality, storage pools provides me with that style of functionality with commodity-based disks on just a normal Windows server. So we need to set up file and storage services, and then we can implement storage pools, which allows me to take disks, mash them together as one large logical entity, and then share that out. We can put RAID controls into that, and we can stipulate whether it's participating in a data store, whether we stipulate the action at a later date, or whether it's acting as a hot spare. We've also got inbuilt NTFS data deduplication. One thing to be wary of, obviously we need to activate it, as you can see from the dump. However, this will not work on any drive that the operating system detects files that are under the Windows file protection. So operating system files, or things like the paging file. So if it detects any of those files, the option to dedupe will be grayed out on that particular drive. And that's important to know, because as a best practice over many years, we've traditionally recommended moving the paging file off the C drive and putting it elsewhere, which means that you've now got two drive letters that you can't actually dedupe. The dedupe process is relatively straightforward. You select your drive, you say that you would like to configure deduplication, and you stipulate how aggressive you want to be with that. So you can have it deduping continuously, or you can stipulate windows that it does during overnight, for example. You've also got the ability to stipulate directories and file types that you would like to exclude from this process. And once you've actually done it, you start to see some sort percentage of rationale with regards to what's actually been saved on that particular drive, and some of the savings are quite astonishing. I personally have my demo rig set up to use different SIM drives for the virtual machines, and those virtual machines, hard drives, have been deduped. So I've got a thinly provisioned hard drive that I'm deduping, that I'm sharing across multiple virtual machines, and I'm still saving somewhere in the region of about 50%. Obviously there's a performance hit as far as that's concerned, so you have to be clever, or you have to think about what data drives that you actually want to apply dedupe to, but you can see some significant savings. Just think about how many file servers are out there that have got multiple copies of document 1. NIC teaming, so this is something I've been waiting for since about NT351. Microsoft have now actually embedded it within the operating system, as opposed to saying, tell you what lads, why don't you go off and have a word with your vendor and see what teaming that they offer, and then you tend to fall into, is it fault tolerant or is it load balancing, and you typically got one or the other but not both. Well, the one from Microsoft doesn't care what network card vendors they are. It also provides both fault tolerance and load balancing, and you quite simply select the network cards that you would like to team, you add them to the team, you give it a name, and it appears miraculously on the screen, and you are good to go. And that is as complicated as NIC teaming actually gets. So if any of you have tried to do it, I've tried to do it in the past with Broadcom and so forth, and it can be a bit of a challenge. This is just very, very straightforward. We've also got, for those of you who are command line junkies, we've got lots of new stuff that you can do within PowerShell. So there's an excessive amount of new commandlets, but more importantly, the ability to schedule the commands to run at specific intervals, and delegate administration, and run it remotely, and even run it against cloud services and embed it within workflows is far greater than it's ever been before. So if you can't do it via the GUI, you'll be guaranteed that you will be able to do it through PowerShell. So those are just some of the features that I've identified from Server 2012 to tell you about today. And I'm going to hand you back to Gary to finish up.
Thank you, Sean. That was very interesting and informative. Environ specialise in providing solutions that meet our customers' exacting needs using this technology, and we very much hope that if you found this instruction useful and would like to have a further conversation, you'll be in touch. Additionally, you may like to know that we have a highly specified demonstration centre in which this and other technologies can be demonstrated, and an active programme of events where you'll have the opportunity to speak directly to our members of our engineering team and partners. Please take a look at www.environ.co.uk/events for further information. Thank you for watching.